All right, welcome in. It is the Oddsmakers presented by SuperBook Sports. I'm Jonathan Von Tobel, Jay Kornegay, and John Murray alongside. Looking dapper as always. What's up, gents? How's it going?
Good. Nice.
I don't understand why you're so upset about this. All I said before we recorded was, "Is that what you're wearing?"
Yeah.
And then the whole show got delayed. I thought maybe you were throwing on a SuperBook pullover. I don't know.
So for our listening audience who are not watching, I'm wearing a plain black T-shirt today.
Right.
And these guys always have a lot of buttons on. And I'm of the mindset that the more buttons on the shirt, the fancier it is. Clearly, right? If it's a button down, it's a very nice shirt. And so before we came on, right when I was about to, enter into my spiel at the top, John hit me with "Is that what you're wearing?" And it just brought me to shambles.
Well, I asked it off the air.
Yeah.
I thought it was appropriate to do it off the air. But I'm sorry. You want to get? We got a rundown here. We got a whole program here.
From what I understand, hopefully,
Yeah.
a vast majority of our audience does come on podcast form. So hopefully this doesn't shake our viewers up on Twitter too much.
Podcast as opposed to like YouTube.
Are we on YouTube? What?
Where else can
That
you?
is something that I did not know.
Where else
not
can
know
you watch
that.
the video component?
Twitter. That's where I always see it.
Twitter.
Yeah, SuperBook Sports.
Yeah, but isn't that
always
just,
retweeted by me? Maybe not by Jay Kornegay and or John Murray. They like it. They don't retweet it.
But isn't that just a? But that's just clips, right? You can't watch. You can watch the whole show.
Wow,
on
you
Twitter?
really don't pay attention. No, they put the whole show up on
The
Twitter.
whole show is on Twitter.
Wow.
But
Now
isn't
I feel less bad about
That-
my shirt.
You didn't know that?
At least I know.
On Twitter?
At
I
least
thought
I'm
it was
paying
YouTube.
attention.
I thought it was too long to. I don't know how that stuff works. I'm not a social media guy, John. I just go on social media to make fun of the NFL.
Here's a tidbit for you then.
Yeah.
The retweet is much more effective than the like.
Right. That makes sense.
gonna throw that out
Because
there.
then it goes back to the on the timeline.
Yeah.
I'll retweet the show.
Oh, there you go.
There it is.
All right.
All right.
And I'll wear buttons more often. How
No,
about
I
that?
don't want you
Thank
to.
you.
Now
I'd rather you.
we're
go
getting
like that.
somewhere. See?
Okay.
And we're working this stuff out on the air. All right. I wanted to bring a moment of levity because before also we started, John made a comment, so I'm going to ask him about this. How was conference tournament week, John?
I don't know. I can't use that word on the air. Thursday was tough. Too many favorites won.
Yeah.
We did, but Jay's right. We did very well Saturday. I think we did okay on Sunday as well. Saturday we did very well. Thursday, way too many favorites. Just too many money line parlays. We really needed. Who was the team? Who did St. John's play? Was that Marquette or Xavier? We really needed St. John's on Thursday. That was bad for us. And you know what game really hurt us was UCLA Colorado. We had a lot of money line parlays going to UCLA.
St. John's was playing Marquette, by the way.
St. John's
Lost in
Marquette.
overtime.
Yeah, Marquette was very lucky to win that game, and that would have killed all the parlays right there in the morning. And then we had UCLA Colorado, and that game was neck and neck down to the end, and then UCLA pulled away. The Colorado coach Boyle got a TO, free throws at the end, or a technical foul, I should say.
Did the Bruins cover that game?
UCLA covered the game.
Yeah. Okay,
And that
that's
game,
what I
that
thought.
really
Yeah.
hurt us. And then the night games, it didn't get any better. We needed Oklahoma State against Texas. We couldn't get that one. And where I got confused, Xavier, they were trailing at halftime, I think against DePaul. And they were trailing into the second half. And that would have saved our day as well, but they can't. They pulled it out. They didn't cover. They won. Tough day. I like complaining. I'll let Jay brag about Saturday. I wanted to complain about Thursday.
What about Friday? Friday we broke about even.
Yeah, we did okay.
Saturday results turned around. We did really well and did well on Sunday. So it was give and take. And, that's how I would describe the conference tournament week, even though I was at the Mountain West tournament for most of it.
Yeah, so was I.
Yeah,
That was a good tournament.
It's a great tournament.
yeah, a lot of
That
great
was
games.
a good tournament. Yeah, I like that one.
Saturday. So when you include your results Saturday and Sunday, I would assume that includes futures, like pre-tournament futures, right?
Yeah,
So that would help your bottom line. I
A little
assume, on
bit,
Saturday
yeah.
and Sunday?
They don't get a lot of action, but we were fortunate because at times, we can get hit on those as some of the sharps out there take a shot on a double-digit favorite or a dog, and the next thing you know, they win the tournament, and we take a little shot there. But they're not really popular.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's waiting for this week, but the games are heavily bet, a lot of interest in them. But as far as to win the conference or to win the conference tournament, those type of bets they slowly tick in.
It was chalky, and to Jay's point, they try to hit a big long shot, and that's where we can lose. But it seemed like it was almost all favorites that won at least the major conference tournaments. I know Memphis beat Houston, but they were the 2 seed. Texas was the 2 seed. They beat Kansas. It was a chalky weekend with Purdue. Duke they weren't the 1 seed, but they were the favorite. it was very chalky weekend. So that's why we didn't lose too much in any of those conference tournament pools.
Well, and going into Selection Sunday, right, it made for a somewhat dramaless Selection Sunday. There was no real bid stealers that were active at all. The teams that were supposed to win the automatic bids did. And there were teams, kind of your guys' point, that through the brackets of the conference tournaments, mainly in the Big Ten, right, Ohio State, Penn State stick out, that made runs, but ultimately, when you got a final result, it was the teams that we expected them to be. So, speaking of, as we get to now, Selection Sunday, let's just start with the process. So what is Selection Sunday like for you guys? You're obviously, I would assume, watching the show, watching the brackets,
show.
get upset?
It's too long.
You know, it really is.
I want to complain about a second thing.
Go ahead.
Well, third thing if we count John's shirt. The show it's like an hour. Just give us the brackets.
I mean, record it,
It's brutal, John.
skim right through it. But
It would be a good show. Yeah. Like unveiling the brackets in like, I don't know, like an Oddsmakers type war room where you guys are setting numbers live and somebody's just sitting there right next to you getting the inside dope, huh?
You want to do that? I think we were watching golf. Wasn't the players going on?
yeah,
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
Well, but you weren't watching that. I think what's his face had like a
No,
6-stroke lead.
Scheffler was safe.
Killed it.
Scheffler was safe. We could talk about doing that in the future.
There you go.
We could just have you like buddy up to one of our guys. What do you make that line?
I prefer Ed Salmons.
Yeah, there you go.
Ed Salmons is a talker.
Iowa, Auburn. Go.
Yeah, go ahead. That'd be a great show.
Make it. Right? Just yell it.
I think the main thing you're looking for is who's seated where in terms of like who else is in their bracket. Just for futures, like when we redid the future odds, we have Houston as the favorite. We consider them to be maybe the best team all year, but they got a pretty favorable draw. They should be able to get to the Elite Eight pretty easily unless they're upset, which does happen. But I thought they got a weaker 4 seed and a weaker 5 seed. I thought they got the strongest 2 seed. Texas being a 2 seed after finishing second in the Big 12, winning the Big 12 tournament by 20 points against Kansas. Pretty good win. They got a very tough 2 seed there, but the top half of that bracket in the Midwest is pretty easy.
Yeah, that was the consensus in the back room. The Midwest, Houston had a pretty decent draw, and actually that's why the odds were lowered. I think we went from 6 down to 5, despite Texas being in there. But the 3, 4, and 5th seeds, who is the 5th seed? I believe it was Miami. Yeah, Miami. And that it wasn't very deep. It was a little top heavy with the top 2, but the others just didn't really seem to are going to give us a threat there. The West is just loaded.
Yeah.
The West, we were thinking that's why some of the odds on some of those teams, even though they did lose UCLA and Kansas, the odds were bumped up on those teams, not only because they lost in the conference tournament, but because of the hard draw they drew in the Western Regional.
Tough draw for Gonzaga. They came in hot. They cruised through the West Coast Conference tournament, crushed St. Mary's in the title game. They get a 3 seed, which was expected. Their 6 seed is TCU. TCU is good. Their 2 seeds UCLA, and then their 1 seed is Kansas, who probably had the best resume in the country in the regular season. That is a tough draw for the Bulldogs.
Don't forget about UConn.
Yeah, I mean,
the Sharps love UConn. Their power ranking is right through the roof.
That's true.
Man, what's interesting is we all have different views on things. I actually thought Gonzaga got a beneficial draw. You get an injured UCLA team if you're going to face them, right? Because UCLA is a little beat up. I think TCU is a very overvalued team that is, I think, 222nd in the country in three-point shooting. Can't shoot worth a dang. And they're going to speed them up and force them to score with them. I was actually kind of I'm going to ruin something here. Gonzaga is my national champion, guys. And I actually thought they had a really good draw.
Well, I bet on them. So I'm what do you call that? Reverse jinxing myself?
Yep. Reverse mush, if you will.
Yeah, by saying, they've got an impossible draw. Oh, well, I better just throw away my ticket.
Right. Yeah, you could write a whole chapter on that.
That's the whole point of that. You're picking them to win the national championship.
The whole thing.
What'd you get them at?
Who, me?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't bet them. I missed out on a good number. So you know what I'm going to do, Jay?
Moneyline parlay?
That's right. We're going to roll that thing over.
Let's
go.
see.
That'll pay more than my bet.
Yeah. You got 14 to 1.
Yeah, that'll pay. It almost always does. But I bet it like really early in the year. I thought they were going to have a better season than they did.
Yeah. Missed the boat. They won 9 straight, to John's point. They're hot coming in. They've covered 6 of them. They're playing pretty well. All right. Before I get to more of the brackets and the actual individual teams, I want to go back to Sunday really quickly and get a couple of questions on you guys. First of which is, so we see some shops that are kind of rushed to get these numbers up. Do you guys care? Like, what is your process? How long does it take you to get the games up? Do you want to take your time? Do you want to be first to market? How does that operate with you guys? Or do you want to make sure, hey, let's get these numbers right, let's get them tight, and then we'll put them up for everybody to bet on?
I don't think we are rushing to be the first to market. I mean, everybody's out there. There's just too much company in that area. So we try to just be accurate, make sure that we got everything down right, and we go through the games. Ed and company back there will go through the numbers, and we always say that we're going to post them right around 6 or 7. That's about right. Mm-hmm. And that's our target line. So even though we are first to market on a lot of different things, John, it's that one is just not one of them. We're just trying to get everything set up and be prepared for this week, and that's exactly what we did. We didn't rush it, but we do have our own opinions. We do throw up our lines, but the time we throw up our line, there's a couple of numbers out there, but we will shade it towards our number that we have in the back room.
How do you guys handle? How many of you work on it at once in terms of minds trying to set some of these numbers? Because I would be interested to see, if there's 3 of you, let's say, and 3 of you come up with a different number, all within a point of it. How do you settle a difference like that?
So what is it? 4 people, maybe 2.5, 3 minds out of that 4.
Okay, there you go.
2 at home.
Well, Ed Samuels would make the final call. He'd get he'd get a few numbers in the room, but Ed's got his own college basketball power ratings. He's been running the college basketball all season, so ultimately he'd make the final call. But opening numbers are very overrated. Opening numbers have low limits for a reason. Mm-hmm. They move quick. It's super volatile. The opening line is a very overrated thing. What matters is getting to the closing line before your competitors do. Yeah, that's the whole goal.
The process in the back room would be, if I was Ed, it would be okay, John, what do you make it 4? John, 4. I make it 2. All right, 2.5. Yeah.
Oh, okay, wow.
Or 2.2.
Ed's opinion is worth 1.5 points.
To Ed, yes. Okay. Maybe he'd make it 2.25 or 1.5.
Maybe he makes it 2.
Yeah. But look, it just doesn't matter.
Why'd you ask at that point?
That's a good question.
We've asked that question.
They're going to move fast, and you're going to see the books. Even the books take the highest limits are going to have lower limits when they first open it, and it's for a reason. It's a volatile. It fluctuates quickly. So the most important thing is be prepared to move. Don't be stubborn. Mm-hmm. If you see the people that are consistently beating you betting something, go with that.
The other question is, I noticed so the numbers go up on Sunday, right? There's some move on the opening numbers, but it's not immense. Monday is when I noticed the screen was lighting up a lot and that there was a lot of movement on Mondays. Jay, you're nodding your head. So is that something that happens, where on Mondays, all right, some of these guys who have influence on the market will let the market settle, and then they'll start picking off the numbers that are still off?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard different things about that. Yeah. There's some people that are doing all their homework, look at then crunching the numbers overnight, and they'll take their shots in the morning. Now, there's some that are able to do that maybe a little faster than others, on Sunday night. But I know the majority of the people that are out there doing it that can influence the line change will do that and wait until Monday morning once they've crunched their own numbers and looked at sites, looked at as far as futures, look at the brackets, those type of things. So that's probably why we don't see those type of movements until Monday morning.
And totals? When do you guys put up totals? Because usually numbers and sides are always the first ones up. Do you guys put everything up together, or do you wait for a few hours afterward to hang up some totals?
It's a little later, right?
It's not as fast as the sides.
We put up did we put them up Sunday night?
I think Sunday night.
Yeah.
Why is that? I mean, generally with everything, you see sides up first and then totals.
Well, they're just more volatile than the others, yeah.
The sides are easier to make.
Yeah, the sides have stronger power ratings than totals themselves. So totals are something that we're not concerned about, but it just takes a little bit more time to calculate those numbers than the sides itself.
Even on the Super Bowl, you put up the side and then you get the total up and the money line.
I got a point of closing line value on I don't know when the number's going to close. Actually, that's not a good point, but bet over 153.5 in Arizona Princeton. It's at 154.5. I feel really proud of myself.
Good job.
Yeah.
That you felt the need to.
Just want to throw that out there because I wanted to get some of these matchups. Yeah, that was a segue. Yeah. So let's talk about some of these games and what we're going to see with all of this. First off, I will ask you guys. The round of 64, I know we have 68, but we're going to get these first 4 settled. The round of 64, the seeds, the popular seed plays and trends, right? People like to play 12s against 5s. 13s against 4s, whatever it is.
Those are the 2.
What's that?
Those are the 2, yeah.
Yeah, right?
Hey, so can I ask one question, though?
Yeah, of course.
Is it official now that this is called the first round? Remember when they would call that the second round?
Yes.
I think
And
so.
that was so
Well,
stupid. Remember that?
right.
I remember that was so stupid. Yeah.
That confused everybody.
Yeah.
It really did.
But this is now again called, because they made me, one of the guys made me a bracket. They now call this the first round.
Correct. The round of 64 is the first round.
All right.
So there's the first 4, then the first round, then the second round.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What was your question?
I wanted to go with like different ones. Like, we call them the Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final 4. We should have like an alliteration for every round, but that's just me. The Sexy 64, and then go from there. You like that
Sexy
one?
64.
I don't think all these matchups are that sexy.
I mean, why not?
I don't know.
That's the
All
only one I
in.
had.
There's a
Yeah.
few that are pretty low energy.
So I'll ask you guys this. How popular are those seeding trends? Will you see a build of liability on these 12 seeds by the time we get to Thursday, Friday?
Well, that's a good question. So straight bets, they're very popular. You'll get a lot of straight bets on the 12 seed and on the 13 seed. But like we always talk about, back to football season, you got to think about your money line parlays. That's what crushed us on Thursday in the conference tournaments, and that ends up determining a lot of how we do on every sport. So I'm looking at in the East region, Duke, Oral Roberts. I think Oral Roberts will be a very popular bet at the window because I think they won 30 games this year. But
31.
we'll have so many money line parlays with Duke. By the time the game starts, we'll probably end up needing Oral Roberts to win outright.
Yep. So the 12 seeds, and I'm sure everybody has their brackets in front of them, but the 12 seeds that are going to be pretty popular here, John already mentioned one of them. Oral Roberts is a 12. You have Charleston going up against San Diego State. That is a 5-12 matchup. Drake has been a team that has been thrown out there as a squad that could maybe even make a run.
All of them.
Right? And
All
then
4.
VCU, the 12 seed.
I like VCU.
VCU for sure.
I like VCU, and I actually like Drake too myself. But if you look at all the 12 seeds, they're going to be popular. In fact, it really wouldn't surprise me outside of maybe the Duke Oral Roberts game, just what John explained. But the other 3 12 seeds will be very, very popular. Wouldn't surprise me if we needed the 5th seeds in all those games.
St. Mary's off of a terrible loss, too. That's the
Very true.
last memory everybody has of St. Mary's. So I think that makes VCU even more popular going into Friday.
And VCU looked really good.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, we should mention too. Like I said, the 4-13s are kind of popular as well. From like a narrative standpoint, kind of licking your finger and testing the wind. It doesn't really seem that outside of Virginia Furman, there's a lot of people calling for some of these 13s to pull some of these upsets. You have Tennessee, Louisiana. Jay, you mentioned a lot of sharp bettors have a lot of respect for UConn taking on Iona, and then that's Indiana, Kent State. Maybe the Golden Flashes have something for an Indiana team that turns the ball over a lot. But outside of that, I haven't really seen a lot of noise outside of the Paladins of Furman maybe upsetting Virginia.
Well, I think one of the biggest moves that we had right out of the gate was on Louisiana.
Yeah.
We took some bets there, and you said what I mentioned earlier about how UConn is a very popular sharp guy, but so is a sharp team. Iona is also one, so there's a little conflict there. But also, exactly the 13th seed Kent State team has also been getting some whispers. I've heard, even before that matchup was thrown out there, Kent State was kind of valued by some of the sharps that I've been talking to.
You mentioned Tennessee, and this is a perfect segue because I know Jeremiah wanted us to mention this, right? Because coaches, a lot of people will point to coaches with some history here. And it's funny that you mentioned Tennessee because I think a lot of people will look to play against Tennessee because Rick Barnes is not a coach that has a lot of respect under his name when it comes to winning in the NCAA tournament.
He's not, but you're right. But more importantly, their point guard, the leader of their team, tore his ACL, and they just have not looked good since he got hurt.
Yeah.
So I think Jay's right. Right away, we saw money come in on Louisiana. And no, Rick Barnes doesn't have a great track record in March. I think he lost in the first round to USC with this middling forward named Kevin Durant, and he lost by about 30 points in that game. No, Rick Barnes is not a good NCAA tournament coach. Bad track record, but he lost his starting point guard, his floor general, Ziegler, I believe his name is. It's just a lot to ask of them. And I would argue they got a tough draw, potentially going against Duke, and then followed by Purdue. That's pretty tough.
Yeah, Zakai Ziegler is the kid you're talking about, their sophomore guard who went down. A very slight young man, 5'9", but a very impactful player for Tennessee.
Slight is a good word. You think he's a college basketball player?
He's
You really
5'9".
think he's slight?
He's 5'9".
I don't know. I'd have to get a better look at him.
5'9", $171.
Yeah, that's pretty slight. All right. I don't know. Okay. Go to the next thing.
Okay, all right.
I'm sorry, John.
I don't want to throw you off. All right, let's go. I wanted to go through some of the games too and get your thoughts. So let's go to a team that I think does have some upset potential and I think it's going to be a pretty popular game from a handle standpoint. Utah State taking on Missouri. Mountain West surprisingly gets 4 teams in. I thought Nevada was not going to get in. I thought Rutgers kind of got snubbed there at the end. I was also surprised that the committee had Oklahoma State above Rutgers, but that's neither here nor there because they're in the NIT. We don't care about that right now.
We saw some money. Bringing that, sorry, John, but some of the money that we saw early was against all these Mountain West teams.
Against.
Okay. We saw Arizona State money. Mm-hmm. We saw Northwestern money, and we saw Missouri money. Now, that total, I know a lot of people have been talking about that total in that Missouri game and how it could be in the 90s. I wanted to see where that is now, but it started, I think, around 155, and it kind of creeped up a little bit. But it hasn't moved as much as I thought it was going to. What's the current number?
Yeah, you guys have at SuperBook 155 right now. Yeah,
I mean, a high total, but it should be an up and down game, a very entertaining game because both those teams can run up and down the court. But a lot of money against the Mountain West, and we all know they all went 0-4 last year. Certainly
they have lost 8 straight. The conference has tournament games, 10 out of 11.
Wow.
Yeah, they're
really.
Yeah, the people you're gonna hear that a lot when you get into this round.
So. Yeah, even though they got 4 teams in there, all 4 were bet against, out of the gate. So not much respect for Mountain West.
Utah State's, I think, and the reason why I wanted to focus on that too, not because it's just in the rundown, but I do think they're an interesting team. Ken Palm has a lot of respect for them. Haslametrics has a lot of respect for them. These are 2 sites, of course, that are college basketball analytics sites that rate these teams. And I think the Aggies, they could arguably be the best 3-point shooting team in this tournament. They're a top 10 team in terms of 3-point percentage. They're an interesting squad. What about Arkansas and Illinois? Anything here, because I feel like Arkansas has been kind of a somewhat sexy selection. It's a team that's got a lot of talent. There's a lot of NBA talent on that roster. There's just been injuries, and I know coaches don't really matter, but they have a coach that has a history of making runs.
He's slight. Eric Musselman is a very slight.
Drinks a lot of Diet Pepsi.
Yeah,
you ever notice that?
He's a very slight individual. I think that's a tricky potential second-round matchup for Kansas no matter who comes out of that game. Arkansas's got a lot of talent on that team.
They do, but they just haven't seemed to put it 100% together.
No,
they haven't gelled 100%. I know there's some whispers around Illinois about that game, but I would be scared of Arkansas because they do have that potential to make that run, and the coach has that history. They have just a ton of talent there, but they haven't been able to put it together, especially late. No. I think the mid 2/3 through the season they look pretty good, but then the last third or so they just really struggled.
Yeah. When you say whispers, they're just like, hey Jay, really think about it.
I like Illinois.
Yeah, okay, all right, like it.
Yeah, who's whispering all this stuff to you? I want to get on this.
Is it Ed?
No, it's not. Ed doesn't whisper. Ed bellows. I don't think he whispers.
Bellows.
So, no, it can't. It wasn't Ed.
Just picture Ed leaning in and whispering something into Jay's ear.
Yeah. Poor Ed.
No, I don't think that's what it was.
All right, I have a question about a specific team. They are an underdog. Did you, or at all, did Penn State get upgraded at all by you guys, given this run that they went on the end of the regular season and into the Big Ten tournament?
I think you have to upgrade Penn State. They were playing very well at the end of the season. I always worry about the teams that run through their conference tournament potentially running out of gas in the first round. But they're playing. First of all, I thought A&M was very underseeded as a 7. Penn State got a tough draw going against A&M, but they also had a long run in their conference tournament. They lost on Sunday in the championship game of that tournament. So I do think you have to upgrade both of those teams based on how they were playing at the end of the year. That's a real tough 7-10 game.
So for what it's worth, Penn State will be playing their 6th game in 11 days because they ended the regular season last Sunday, then went on a 4-day run through the Big Ten tournament where they ultimately fell short to Purdue, and then they get to play on Thursday. So it is a somewhat tough stretch for Penn State in terms of the amount of minutes.
That's a very valid point. Penn State looked exhausted in that championship game, but their shooting reflected that as well. And they can really go cold from the outside.
So, and you mentioned money against the Mount West team, so Northwestern, Boise State. Some spots that opened that thing early were at pick. We saw it swing to Northwestern -1.5, so the Northwesterns, the Wildcats, Purple Cats, if you will. That's Northwestern, right? Or is it Kansas State that is called the Purple Cats?
Oh,
They're both Purple Cats.
No, they're both Wildcats. There's too many teams named Wildcats.
Okay, yeah. That's a very overused mascot.
It's hard to keep track of. There's too many Wildcats. There's too many Bulldogs.
That's a very good point. We need more Spiders. We need more Richmonds.
Yeah.
That's, I think, my whole takeaway from all of this.
Okay.
We talked about Duke and Oral Roberts. Okay, I'll ask you guys this. For Duke and Oral Roberts, where did you open that? Because there were some spots that actually opened that under 5. I think we saw an opener of 4.5. I think you guys are now up to 6.5.
Yeah.
Where did you guys open that number?
I don't recall.
I'd have to defer to
Yeah.
Jay.
Okay.
I was going to say I don't remember.
I thought it was like 5, 5.5.
I
but
thought it
can't
was
remember.
5.5 if I was to take a guess. But we have taken some Duke money. They're red hot. I mean, they're playing really, really well. That's understandable. There's that 5th, 12th seed situation. I don't think we're going to see a lot of money on. I think we'll see money on those other 12 seeds, but not that one.
When I assume Duke is also one of those schools that is garnering some futures interest, considering the way that they're entering.
I've never seen Duke play.
The way they played lately. Yes, that's.
I don't think I've ever seen Duke play their opening 2 games outside of North Carolina. They have to go all the way to Orlando.
All the way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty far.
They're going to go through Greensboro to get there.
Of course. Okay. Like, how are they not in Greensboro? That doesn't. Oh, okay.
The other 2 I have to ask you guys about. Actually, we've hit on one of them already, so we'll go to Kentucky and Providence. What do you guys think about Kentucky as we enter this tournament? Because that was a team that it looked like they were turning things around. They end the regular season as 10-point favorites against Vandy, lose that game outright, and then have their SEC tournament run snuffed out by Vandy as well. So the last 2 times we've seen Kentucky lose, it was to the same team, and it was a team that didn't make it to the NCAA tournament. Were you improving Kentucky as the season went along?
How do you make any sense of Kentucky's season?
Yeah.
I mean, they look like they could be the best team in the country coming into the season. They played poorly all year. They showed those flashes. Remember they won at Tennessee when they were a pretty significant underdog in that game. And we know they've got all this talent on the team, but yeah, they blow both those Vanderbilt games. They're limping into the tournament. I have no idea what to make of Kentucky. They are as baffling a team as there is in the country.
All right. Before we get you guys out of here, what do you guys like? Huh? Any games you're looking forward to? Anything you really want?
You mentioned that Utah State game. I like watching Utah State play. I mean, they're pretty.
Mount West guy.
Same. I am, but I also enjoyed watching Missouri over the weekend as well. So I think that's going to be a very entertaining game. I would be interested to see how the West shakes out actually, because there's so many solid teams in that region, and not to mention the regional will be held here.
Yes.
In Las Vegas for the first time ever, which I hope I can sneak out and maybe catch a game there. But I don't know, just looking for a really solid tournament, hoping that we have a mixture of results because that's usually the best for us. Some favorites, some underdogs. I know John is not in favor of these huge upsets. He likes to prefer a stronger matchup later in the in the rounds, which makes sense.
Plus, I don't like seeing the little guy win.
You mean like the slight guys?
Yeah, no, I want to see all the giants win.
Okay.
I don't want the little man to win.
Except for West Virginia.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the game I'm looking forward to. West Virginia plays Maryland on. I think that's the first game Thursday, right?
I believe it is. Yeah,
in Birmingham. I don't know what West Virginia did, John, to deserve that. If they win, they play Alabama in Alabama in the second round. I don't know. That's a Duke-like draw, but whatever. West Virginia, they played really well the second half of the year. I'll definitely be rooting for that. And, I feel the same way as Jay. It'd be cool. It'd be really cool to go to a regional final, Sweet 16. So I'll be rooting for all the big schools to win in that. Kansas, Gonzaga, UCLA.
Yeah,
Kansas, Kansas hasn't had enough success recently. So I'd like to see the Kansas teams do well.
I know that there were Kansas fans very upset about what the Jayhawks have to go through.
Well, Mike Rigg, I think he formerly produced the show, or still might be involved in some capacity. I heard all these Kansas people complaining that they got the draw in the West instead of the Midwest as a 1 seed. This is the school that I think won the national championship last year with an incredibly easy draw. My message to them is cry me a river, guys. I mean, you're 1 seed in back-to-back years. You got to go all the way to Las Vegas. Give me a break.
Well said. Well said. I want to add anything to that. Hey, if you're looking to catch college hoops games at the Book, make sure you come see us at the SuperBook, Westgate, Las Vegas, Lodge Casino in Blackhawk, Colorado, and, of course, newly added Taft's Ale House out in Cincinnati. And for all sorts of updates, SuperBook Sports up on social media and at superbook.com. You can stay up on top of all the latest odds, boosts, and promos. Until then, we will talk to you next week here on the Oddsmakers.